It was summer, with trees and sky and sea. I saw nothing else, only colors, paintbrush, you, and this. Everyone became too much for me. I had to go further into solitude, completely away from everyone. Then maybe I could find what I had to find. Namely, myself. A name for myself. And so I began life and theater.
Come on in.
You're just in time for the show. When we take a look at art, we see it at its surface.
We look at the colors and shapes and what the picture is meant to be.
It is not until the second glance that we begin to consider its meaning.
Its meaning to us. What emotion does it convey?
You know, the same can be said about how we see others.
We pass strangers on the street.
Seeing them for their hair, their smile, and the coat that covers them.
We look at their colors and shapes.
It is not until the second glance that we begin to consider their meaning.
If at all.
If at all.
Humans are flawed.
Infinitely.
Humans are infinitely flawed.
Even so, some consider us to be the dominant species, better than all other animals because we are capable of this one thing.
Written language?
Empathy. Humans are made to empathize, but so bad at arousing it.
Sometimes we forget to take that second glance.
Blaming the actions of a terse waitress on her short temper.
Blaming road rage on a fragile ego.
All about blaming.
But why don't we pause?
Why don't we see that waitress for what she could be? An overworked
and underpaid
single mother
who was terse because her mind was cluttered with thoughts of bills and babysitting and cheating boyfriends.
Why don't we see ourselves as that speeding driver, weaving in and out of traffic because our life has started contracting?
Why don't we?
You know, the same can be said about art.
Paints had to be put onto canvas by a paintbrush in a pair of hands that were desperate to tell a story. Whether they meant to tell that story or not, it has been told either way.
And art doesn't stop when it's completed.
Right. Art is made both for the process of making, but also for viewing, for listening.
Right. Was it heard? Because art is a performance.
A performance of life.
Art cannot be made without the emotions and experiences and tears and joys of human beings.
It cannot be made without sunshine and nightmares and memories from childhood.
An artist cannot make art without telling their story.
So we ask you,
life
or theater?
I was on Pinterest the other day, just passing time like a middle-aged mom, and I came across a pin titled 32 of the most beautiful words in the English language.
Yeah? Any good?
Yeah, well, that pin took me to another pin, and then I was in some dictionary, and then I got to a BuzzFeed article. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but something along the lines of words to describe emotions that you didn't know you needed a label for. Isn't that neat? Who would have thought you could just invent words? I mean, I know that's how all words were invented, but...
Well, any words that stuck out?
Yeah. Okay. Let me read this to you. Lilo. A friendship that can lie dormant for years, only to pick back up instantly as if no time had passed since you last saw each other. Sweet, right?
Yeah, I immediately thought of someone.
And my personal favorite, Sonder.
Ah, Sonder. The moment of pause one takes to listen to the sound of the wind in the trees outside.
No. Sonder. The realization that each passerby has a life as vivid and complex as your own. But I did like your answer also.
Right, the whole waitress thing.
Exactly. It's not until the second glance that we begin to consider its meaning. So now I'm thinking, is Sonder intentional? We have to try to do it, right?
I think so. I mean, we are our own main character, so it's kind of hard to always think of others when we're so busy with ourselves.
Unless we are avoiding thinking about ourselves or anything and turn to entertainment to distract us. Okay, think of TikTok. Sure, it's a lot of fun and games, but people have been using it during quarantine to cope and pass the time and have laughs with their families, doom scrolling, making jokes, and filming to show each other a little piece of ourselves.
And for those watching, you kind of get a step into their shoes.
Exactly. We're all going through this collective experience. How many unprecedented times emails have you gotten?
Oh, a lot.
Right? But still, people are able to use art to adapt and overcome.
And not the first time we've seen this in history.
Over and over we see it. Countless times art has been born from tragedy, loss, hardship. Think of all the theater that came from the AIDS crisis. The Normal Heart, Rent, Angels in America, The Boys in the Band.
Or even the progression to hip hop. I mean, Black communities have been using music for centuries to unite and express the blues, jazz.
Yeah, how much art has been created to
Make sense of it all?
Together, let's enter the world of artists. People with creative energy can make sense of themselves and their world and leave a legacy and model for audiences to do the same.
Which is why we introduce you to Charlotte Salomon, known by the pseudonym C as a graphic storyteller who turned her losses into a record of coping. Her paintbrush bonded generations of survivors.
Born in Berlin on April 16, 1917, this Jewish baby girl would face a life of traumatic rejection and displacement. But her art gave her footing when the ground gave way. When looking at the life of Charlotte Salomon, it's possible to focus on the event which caused her death, the Holocaust, instead of looking at the everyday of her story.
Her story, which is told through a collection of 1,325 paintings, all with transparent overlays, dialogue, and music to match, is titled Life or Theater. But this was just a fantastical retelling. This was not entirely reality.
So let's look through the window of art into her life. Let's cry with her and mourn with her and celebrate her ability to make art, her ability to use art to understand herself and her surroundings. And let us follow her example to make sense of our own.
Nice, France, 1940, the break of morning. You'll see CS poring over herself, lost in thought, lost to us, inspired to make art by the art of others. See? There. She is speaking with her grandmother, a poet who also used creation to escape the beast of her burdens.
If you think about it, you can look back on a wonderful, full life. Apart from anything else, you found a great deal of satisfaction, and you have succeeded in expressing in poems many things that have been denied to others.
Her grandmother has recently attempted to die by suicide.
Some of your most recent poems are positively inspired, and I am convinced that a great literary talent has been lost in you.
Next, you will hear her try and will her grandmother to live.
So I'll make you the following proposition. Instead of taking your life in such a horrible way, why don't you make use of those same powers to describe your life? I am sure there must be some interesting material that weighs on you, and by writing it down, you will liberate yourself and perhaps perform a service to the world.
It is now that the audience begins to wonder whether or not CS was speaking to herself or to her beloved matriarch.
There aren't that many good books representing universal truths, and your book would be among those. I'm absolutely sure of that. You can start right now. There are paper and pencil. I have to leave you alone now since I don't imagine you want to go hungry for the rest of the day.
This advice, CS, did you take it in your work?
Life or theater? A play with music. It took me almost a year to figure out what is going on in this strange work of mine. And to answer your question directly, I don't know. I don't know if I took my own advice. I certainly created. I created her. But throughout the process, especially in the first pages, its text and melody have slipped my mind, and the entire origin of the work remains a mystery, even to me.
Do I, as witness to your creation, have permission to explore its purpose?
Purpose, such a finicky word. The reason I don't know this about my art is because it's almost entirely impossible to put a purpose on creation. Sure, art can be intentional. It can be political and weaponized. It can be cathartic. But purpose, I'm not sure. Blankets have a purpose, to keep you warm. Eyeglasses have a purpose, to help you see. But art? Even if I were to put a purpose of to make you feel happy, how do you suppose that should be achieved? You can't put one label on that.
To make you happy, perhaps a painting of a child being licked by a puppy with lots of bright colors.
Ugh, you're missing the point. I could paint for the purpose of escaping my thoughts, but when that paint goes onto paper, that gets lost in its becoming. Art is an active process. It is evolving and subjective.
But certainly art can be used to understand.
Yes, understand is a better word.
Understand is better because it is also an active process?
And evolving and subjective. You may ask again.
So, do I have permission to understand your art?
I expect so. I invite you and your audience to do just that. Please, use my play to understand my life. Well, Charlotte Kahn's life.
My dear audience, the last line that CS spoke was an integral one. She makes an important distinction. Here she reminds us that although they share the same first name, the story she tells in her art is a story starring Charlotte Kahn. There are currently 2 characters on stage. So not only are we investigating the life and thoughts of Charlotte Salomon, CS, as an artist, but we will also see the version of herself as fictionalized by life or theater. This Charlotte, the one we are soon to bring you into the home of, is a retelling, a narration, a vessel for theater. CS created this Charlotte to storytell, to raise the curtains on her experiences as a human being. Similarly, what we plan to do for you tonight. So now I ask you, artist, why did you create?
I realized one thing, that art cannot exist for itself but must flow from life. And I am the life from which she flows. I make it, it makes itself. It's all very nuanced.
Would you say you create for the same reason a viewer observes?
To understand? Yes. It doesn't always feel that way, however. Sometimes I paint because it's quieter than screaming. With that, you may laugh. I don't know why I paint. I guess I do, but it's not one neat and clean answer. I paint because it's the only way for me to see the world I feel. I paint because when my thoughts leave my head, through my arm, through my paintbrush, and I can stare before me and see my experiences as I feel them, it makes them feel real to me. I can mock or criticize through the colors I use. I can add levity or motion. I can experience comedy or guilt or grief or depression and get them out of my head and onto the page. And when I'm finished, I turn the page.
So it's about control. You paint to control the uncontrollable.
All right there, Freud.
Well, I just meant you paint so you can understand the things you experience, the things that feel out of your hands, the things that happen to you. Sorry if that sounded callous.
I forgive you. And yes, I put those things into my hands, quite literally. I think mostly it's an escape.
So art, why do you paint?
I paint because I'm in love. I paint because some things are so beautiful, you need to see them twice. You need to immortalize them.
I agree. How do you feel about children being licked by puppies?
I also paint because I feel anger. I feel trapped. I feel betrayed. I paint so I have something to show for myself. I paint because otherwise I would be staring toward an empty windowsill. It's an escape that doesn't have a permanent consequence. Charlotte Salomon paints to leave her world, to abandon it. I think when I said escape, I meant mental reprieve. Art gives me a chance to breathe. But I also paint for the hope that I can connect to a world outside of my own, connect to an audience who can understand my story, who can feel my pain. It is an escape, but also a homing signal.
Like you are inviting them in.
I wanted to feel less alone.
I am with you now.
I wanted someone to see my hurt and hurt for me. I wanted
Empathy?
empathy,
You were bearing your soul for all to witness.
as most creatives do. But that is so easily lost in the puppies licking children.
Right. Lost in what the audience wants to see.
It takes more to reveal the innermost feelings churning up the soul. And when artists want to pay bills, they settle on the prior. I used to fantasize that all creation is bred from passion. But I soon realized that most artists, singers, painters, dancers have either never possessed their own feelings or forgotten them. The artist no longer sings, paints, or dances for his own satisfaction, but for the public. Luckily for her, Charlotte Salomon is blind to this truth. I wish I could say that art has always been my passion. That I first picked up a brush when I was 3 years old and found the light of creation in my heart. Instead, art came to me as a script, written by my doctor and thrust upon me like the bottle of pills. Considering my family's history, I don't blame him.
But once you were given art, it was like you always knew it. Yes?
Certainly. Like getting a letter from a long-lost friend.
And after you were reacquainted, they never left your sight.
That's right. Once I was prescribed art, I holed myself away, stowed in a hotel room to explore this cure. I can't say with my entirety that it necessarily fixed anything, but I was hooked. Hooked on pouring myself onto the page and reliving the terrors I was too afraid to confront. I loved it. Me and this old friend fell in a deep, deep love. I shared my secrets with him, and he kept them in his coat pocket, folded carefully and wrapped with twine. We shared giggles and tears and hours of seeing the world through the lens of color. Greens were more vibrant, blues were more calming. I saw violets and amber and ochre and brass. Every color you could think of met my eyes as I grew closer to him. And my cheeks, always touched with a pale shade of pink.
And we're still discussing painting, correct?
Yes. Painting. Through painting, I found a lot of blah as well. There were days when the color gray would not leave my head. I would try and paint with reds, greens, yellows, but they just kept layering and mixing and muddying until the figures and the page were nearly indistinguishable. It was dark. My nebulous soul personified.
And the people in your art?
I painted them as I felt them.
Not as you saw them?
There's a difference?
Understood.
You know what love looks like?
Feels like?
Once more, there's a difference?
Right.
So again I ask, but this time into the depths of the nether, do you know what love looks like?
Sunshine, rose petals, dew on grass.
Music.
What did that be? Sounds like?
Piano, singing, opera, cats, meowing for milk in the street.
Children laughing.
Children laughing.
Far away dance music emanating from some far away place.
He was music.
Which looked like color.
And felt like rain. But the kind of rain that children jump in, that couples share an umbrella in, that I would love to dance in.
The kind of rain that you can see a rainbow after.
Now you're catching on.
What was his name?
Amadeus Dauberlin. He was a singer.
Alfred Wolfson. And he was yellow?
He was light in a dark world of black and red.
Black and red were the colors of death in Charlotte's world. They stained her. They bled and dripped into many corners of her childhood, whether at that time she was aware of it or not.
When I was a girl, this scene played through my head every time I closed my eyes. It banged against my skull like a broom against a dusty rug. I couldn't rid myself of it. I heard her cough. I saw her retch. I remember feeling her hand in mine. Mine so much smaller than hers. Hers so much softer than grandfather's. But this is just a memory. I understand her desire for freedom. There's a lot in this world I would like to escape. Doesn't make it any easier. I heard her cough. The anguished look in her eyes as she lay tired and drained. I often see that same face when I wake in the morning and stand in front of the mirror. I am alive. And I have no one's hand to hold now. In some ways, that's a good thing. My mother didn't die laying in that bed. Her body was not surrounded by sweat-soaked sheets. It was surrounded by earth. Cold earth. Hard earth. I heard those coughs, but I did not hear the sound of her body hitting the ground beneath that window. That I would later make up myself. Death and I are very close. He was and is familiar to me. There are days where I cry and cry and cry for all that he has taken from me. He has taken the hand of my grandmother, great uncle, mother, great-grandmother, and cousin. He held their hands and took them. He did that. But death, it's a tricky friend. In some ways, I don't blame him. For everything he has taken from me, he has given to them. He showed them reprieve. But he knows all too well how stubborn I am.
This disease was one that infected families all across Germany. It was in their film, their music, their radio. In the Weimar years following defeat in 1918, with inflation and violence to match, movies like Goethe's Werther's Suicide and Wagner's Liebestod, Love, Death, publicized this tragedy. Charlotte's mother, Franz, had taken her life within one of the nations with the highest suicide rates in the world, within a province and capital with one of the highest rates in the nation, within a city with the highest ratio of female suicides, in a class with the highest rate among classes, and in a faith with the highest proportion among faiths. Her death was not anomalous. It was exemplary. But the relatives never explained any of this to their daughter Lotte.
I miss my mother. I miss the way she felt, the way she made me feel. Even sitting here on this barren wood floor, her warmth surrounds me. I close my eyes and there she is. Her beautiful, weary brown eyes telling me how much she loved me. I'm still waiting to hear from her. She said that the minute she got to heaven, that she would write me a letter. She promised. Promised. I'm beginning to wonder if she forgot the address. Mama, I'll continue waiting.
It was only 3 years later that Charlotta's father married Paula, a singer.
Father has brought home the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Her smile is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. I've heard of butterflies, but oh, how I've never felt them before.
So you.
Do you hear her sing? The notes and tunes and songs sound beautiful. Even the way she scolds me sounds beautiful. She's my new mother, and she's a famous opera singer.
Charlotta's head is full of Miss Paulinka Bim Bam.
She makes me want to dance. Oh, I dance around the piano when she sings. It feels like a concert just for me. And Father. She is light.
And a few years later, he was light.
Amadeus is the prophet of song. Oh, he consumes me. Oh, how I love music. He showed up at our doorstep, penniless, looking for work, but I think it was fate.
It had not been fate, but the plight of the Jewish people. Like most Jews, Amadeus Doberlin, or Alfred Wolfson, had been dismissed from his job, forbidden from working and performing for non-Jews. And unfortunately for our young artist, when in the Salomon home, it was not Charlotta he was smitten by, but her new mother, Paula.
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. I will earn his attention later. We make the world beautiful when we intertwine minds and hands and later, bodies.
And you are how old?
20. My parents would forbid our relationship.
For good reason. He's what, twice your age?
But it's love. And it was secret. He opened my eyes how it feels to be a woman.
Alfred Wolfson opened many women's eyes.
It's hard being a young woman now. A young Jewish woman. A young Jewish woman without a mother. Amadeus brought me comfort. He showed me love. Well, at least what felt like love. Maybe that love was more like the desire to be wanted. He made me feel wanted. He made my body feel like my own. My sexual awakening was exciting and heartbreaking, as most are, I assume. When I fell for a man who would not love me publicly nor in secret, I was reminded of how alone I truly was. Learning that my world, my home, my Germany, my people didn't love me, and now my first love did not. I wanted him to say it. I wanted to hear those words, those 3 words. I wanted to know that somebody could. It just happened to be him. But he didn't. He didn't love me. In some ways, I'm thankful that he never said that he did. I can hear his words so clearly now. Charlotta, you are destined to create something great.
You are destined to create something great.
So I made the decision to prepare to do just that. It was my way to survive.
Berlin, March 1933. National Socialists take power.
What do you see when you look out your window?
I'm afraid I come from a much different world, Charlotta.
It can't be that different.
Well, when I look out my window, I see stillness. And not just stillness from some mild weather, but stillness from the world around. There's a lot going on, but I can't see it. It's a pretty view. Eerie.
I don't feel still. I feel trapped. I look out my window and I see their flags. The flags they wave to remind us how much they want us dead, and all I can do is sit.
You are 16, Charlotta. You have time. I know this was not the truth. I know this is not how her story ends. Whether it was said for my comfort or her own, I'm unsure.
I may be 16, but I know how it feels to be wanted to be dead. And if they don't want me dead, then they certainly don't want me in their schools or their hospitals or anywhere they can witness my Jewish face, my Jewish body, my Jewish being.
German Jews have been dismissed from their jobs and robbed of their rights. Albert, Charlotta's father, had been relocated to the Jewish-only hospital. Paula had been forbidden from working for non-Jews. Charlotta does not want to attend her anti-Semitic school.
I'd like to choose artistry in my own way. Paula says this is not my path, but how can she say that? When she is the one who brought me music, I blame her.
You have already chosen art, Charlotta. That I can tell you.
The Nazis think they know art. They surely make a lot of it. Everywhere I look out this silly little window, I see their posters. Propaganda.
It's because art moves people. They want people to be moved. And on the other side, they want people to be afraid.
The thing about the art of the Nazis is it's wrong. They lie. Can you even imagine what it's like to look
at the art of faces meant to look like your face? Hair meant to look like your hair?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
They think we are ugly and evil, and all we do is exist.
You're right, it's...
Sometimes I can't help
But stare at those posters. I let the images be burned into me. I can't peel my eyes away. Through tears, I force myself to look, and I say to myself, how can this be art? I turn my back when I see images like that. And they march so proudly. How can they be proud? Proud of terror and fear and murder of spirits. Proud of dividing families. Proud of erasing a whole people. Proud of their ignorance to the fact that they are indeed the bad guys. Their pride is nothing worthy of art.
Every once in a while, we all need a place to escape our burdens. For some, it's renting a cabin away from the world, away from the noise, where the only thing left to do is to fish and be one with nature. For others, it's running away to France, being surrounded by music and carbs halfway through a bottle of Chardonnay. But these are vacations. They are more or less by choice. When Charlotte spent the summer of 1933 in Italy, it was so that her mind could have a place to stretch. Spending her 17th birthday in Rome was more or less not a choice.
Rome in April is beautiful, more beautiful than Berlin, usually and especially now.
Charlotte finds herself here. It is a chance to explore, experiment, and grow, as most 17-year-olds do.
Have you seen the paintings here? The sculptures? Oh, everything feels like art.
She is free to be herself on these streets. Things feel lighter as there are no chains weighing her down.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. The Nazis don't stop being Nazis when I'm out of their sight. I still feel the stares of people on my back. My back that doesn't even have a sign of Jew on it.
I know that feeling all too well.
At least the art here is loud.
Da Vinci, Moriarty, Bellini, Raphael, the loudest of them all.
Oh, I ache to be loud, to be heard, and this place, it shouts at me. Every time I feel my feet on these streets, the music plays. It sings, Roma Eterna, City Divina. Oh, in my redemption's pain, I can feel thy might again. Roma Eterna, City Divina.
The city of eternal divine.
Oh, the record is spinning, and my feet are the needle. Music. Art is art, but art is art when there's music.
Ah, art is art.
It carries you. You see the paintings with your eyes, hear the music with your ears, but feel it all in your heart. Oh, don't you feel it? Don't you feel it in your bones and in your insides?
Oh, I certainly feel something. But that could just be the Parmesan, Charlotte.
Oh, you are abhorrent. Now, close your eyes.
I don't think-
Close your eyes.
Okay, they are closed. Now, when do I start being moved by the ghost of Italy's past?
You are thinking too much. Shush. Now, close your eyes and feel it. Good. Keep going. Follow my lead. I want to use art in every way the Nazis can't. They say I don't have it, but what is to have? Painting is an extension of yourself. So, I'll simply paint what I feel. And I'll do it honestly and brashly. Oh, I'll paint 1,000 paintings if I have to.
1,325.
You said that art can move people. I want to move people.
So she researched. She let herself be moved.
You can be one of my friends, if you'd like.
Oh, I can receive that honor? What did I do to deserve such a thing?
I talk to you just as much, if not more, than I do them, so it's only fair. And like them, you seem to follow me everywhere.
Well, in that case, I'll be your friend, if you'd like.
I meet my friends at the library. We share our secrets in the book stacks.
What kind of secrets? Crushes on handsome young men, bundt cake recipes, poems that make you want to fall in love.
Art, mostly. Germany's best kept secret.
Jewish art.
Any art that isn't German by their standard, any art that isn't Aryan, they hide it in the basement. But anything worthy of finding is destined to be found. They'd put me there too if they'd have the chance, but sorry for them, I go there willingly. Dr. Sing Sang is going to change that.
Dr. Sing Sang.
Yes, he's going to create our own basement, one that's above ground, one that can be witnessed. He asked the Nazis, and they said yes. Can you believe that? A Jew asked the Nazis if we could have our own art space, like a festival, and they said yes. Oh, it will be wonderful. I'll get to see my friends.
It was called the Kulturbund, spearheaded by Dr. Sing Sang, or Kurt Singer. It was a performance opportunity for thousands of Jews to safely exhibit their art, and for tens of thousands to safely witness it.
Paula says it's going to be a haven for Jewish artists.
She is correct. It will be an awakening, a renaissance, a chance for healing and resurrection.
I know I call them my friends, but They are not really. Friendship is mutual, and they don't know of me.
Oh, how wrong she was.
But that doesn't diminish our relationship. I still know them. I do. Hold them close to my heart and see them when my eyes are closed. I know them. And one could argue intimately.
Of course you do. You listen.
I understand them, how I desire to be understood. Well, and if I paint with them in mind, then that's a conversation.
Well, I don't doubt it, Charlotta. You are all connected.
We are all trapped in this basement. But I will learn their art for someone else whose friends are only in printed pages, so that some little Jewish girl may have a friend with whom she can share her secrets with. Just like I daydream with Vincent van Gogh amongst his sunflowers, she can sit upon my picnic blanket and share my canvas. Just like I learn faces from Amadeo Modigliani or cry with Otto Dix, she can doodle a memory that she only knew in memory. I want her to see my art and be inspired to make her own. Her Marc Chagall. Every artist I have passed in the basement, even just for a moment, I have kept with me. I hold the faces of Max Pechstein, Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, Henri Matisse, all inside of my creative heart. I breathe their breath.
What she would never know is that out of the swaths of Jewish art being shown in the Kulturbund, her art, recalling the event, would be amongst the most revered primary sources. She continued that conversation. She created dialogue that not even the Nazis had been able to erase.
If no one is here for us, we can at least be there for one another. I will paint for them, and I will paint for her. I see Jews singing to the tune of hope, bonding over art. Our minds are protected by this alternative, fantastical world. And we are marrying shared experiences of the past to drown out the present. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. I can't stare any longer. I can't sit with this pit in my stomach and pretend like life is okay. I hate these walls that make me want to peel off my own skin like the paper that covers them.
Lotta, just take a breath.
It's what? Okay. Do not tell me that it's okay, even out of my own country, forced into another, I find no respite. I sit on my bed with my knees to my chest, and I have to imagine a pair of comforting arms around me. I imagine a gentle whisper telling me, Lotta, you are so very strong. I have to imagine it because in reality it cannot happen. There is no comfort here. I am the comfort here.
Charlotte was exiled to France. She's sharing the home of Ottilie Moore, an American, with her two grandparents, Gross Mama and Gross Papa. These were not affectionate nicknames.
Ottilie is so kind. So very kind. And even then, they draw it out of her. They suck her light like carbon dioxide to a flame.
She welcomed them in. She welcomed everyone in. But Gross Mama and Gross Papa did not reciprocate her kindness.
I don't want my family to infect her.
I don't want her only escape to be out of this house. Oh, God.
Why must I feel so empty?
Feel so sick with this thing trying to tear itself from my insides. It hurts.
I want it out.
I want it out. I want it out of my guts and my liver and my hollow chest. I want it out. But having it in at least feels like something.
So she painted. It was her distraction. She painted for the sole reason but to paint. Being the candle that she was, Ottilie saw this warmth in Charlotte and did one thing that would forever change her life, forever change the course of our history. She told Charlotte that she was an artist.
I am an artist.
Ottilie Moore was the first and only person to like Charlotte's paintings. She bought them, she framed them, she hung them. She inadvertently covered the shared walls of their home with the sole reminder of Charlotte's light. They were the comfort that she had never known. They showed her hope. These walls that she hated and still hated, but now hated because they were a reminder of the evil trapped within them and the kindness they exhibited. As a gift to Ottilie and to thank her for giving her purpose, Charlotte needed to remove her grandparents from this space.
I told them they were better than charity. I lied.
They were not better than charity. She convinced them to leave with this one simple lie, this lie that was theater.
Their egos were so full. I knew they couldn't resist preserving them. So I put on a face for the first of many to come, and I made a play of the truth. This act would later define me. I would be remembered for my ability to paint a story that is a reflection of reality. My escape, my shout into the void. My role as a politician.
Charlotte would never stop escaping. She chased art because it was the only escape she had control over. The rest were forced upon her.
I was on the street, at the market, filling my basket with produce and feeling a loaf of bread for freshness when I heard a shout. As most Jews in 1940 would, I froze. My ears cocked, my heart loud.
All Jews to the square!
An officer boomed, his voice powerful and aimed in my direction.
All Jews to the square!
He said it again, the word Jew cutting me like glass. My feet were unable to move. It was animalistic, the adrenaline in my body forcing me into a fight or flight response. Running would only make me a target. I had to comply.
With her basket in tow, she pushed her shoulders back and pulled herself to the square.
There was a bus there.
People filing in.
People filing in like a school of fish.
They knew.
They didn't know, but we knew. We could feel it.
The same feeling a dog has when it hides from its owner.
It hides so you can't watch it die.
Charlotte swallowed hard, her feet doing her service and pulling her in line.
I've never felt my throat so dry.
All Jews to the square!
Oh, God. Oh, God. Don't breathe, Charlotta. Don't panic, Charlotta. Stay quiet, Charlotta.
Don't panic, Charlotte.
Don't.
Your life is about to end.
My life is about to end.
Breathe while you still can. Turn around.
That voice was not my own.
Go! Turn around.
An officer.
Slip through while you still can.
I wanted to run, to move as quickly as I could, to run and never stop running.
The lump in her throat ached. Her feet again did her a service and pulled her out of line. Calmly, she followed his instructions.
Go. Turn around. Slip through while you still can.
She was home. Before she knew it, she was home.
I don't remember.
As most forget the loops on a roller coaster, she did not remember.
I remember getting home.
Home being a subjective term, home was where she slept. Home was not where she felt safe.
I wanted to keep running.
The lump in her throat ached.
What happened next?
This is your story, Charlotte.
I don't remember.
You remember
I don't want to remember.
your grandmother? We've been here before.
But now it's the end.
You tried to save her, but you couldn't.
She wanted to escape.
She did.
She escaped.
Art could not save her.
I couldn't save her.
And she left you,
With him.
like they all left you. Like they all left you. They left you, Charlotte.
But he,
He comforted you.
no,
He comforted you.
no.
He makes you wish you had gotten on that bus.
He
Told you
told me.
that everyone in your life had left you.
me. Every year I light this candle to remember them. But this year it feels different. The flame is the same, the wax is the same, but the memory has changed. Even in life, I was alone. This moment was the moment that broke me, that spliced me open, pouring my insides out like hot concrete. My grandfather whispered those words. A chill running down my spine, my skin crawling like a colony of ants. His words poisoned. His voice, honey. He whispered those words like they did not matter. Like I should have known, like they would not splice me open. Having nothing left to break, he wanted to break me.
Lotta,
They left you. I always knew things were not as I saw them. I always knew. But I didn't want to know. I wanted my life to be like a snow globe. The people inside happy, frozen in time. Ice skating with their mothers and throwing snowballs for their perfectly great Great Dane. But he was a hammer.
your mother jumped out that window.
She left me.
It was not the flu.
They all left me.
Your aunt did not drown. Your grandmother was not ill.
They left you.
You're right.
No. You. They left you. They were sick and you were the hammer.
Lotta, don't be hysterical. Come lie down and you'll feel better.
Better.
That's right. Come lie down and you'll feel better.
Even in life, I was alone. So I ran. I had nothing else to do, nothing else to feel, and nowhere to feel safe, so I escaped. I had to. I had to go. I ran away to a hotel room. I was running and did not stop running. Oh, I ran from the dark thing that swallowed me at night, the thing that looked like thunder and felt like tar, the thing that sunk its teeth into my veins and sucked me dry of life. It lurked in corners and slept in that bed. Oh. It wasn't the Nazis I was running from. They were not the villains of my story. I would not give them that. I carry myself faster, away from that thing, away from everything that makes me feel small. I am searching for something in myself, searching for something in these walls. I am empty. And I ache to find what fills me. I run. I am running. My legs are tired. My lungs burn. My lungs burn like I have been breathing nothing but fire. My heart beats faster than I can move. I run. I run and don't stop running until I hide. Get away from it. Get away from the evil beneath those sheets. The evil that killed your mother and your grandmother and everything you held dear. Hide, Lotta. You have nothing but yourself to save. Climb, go through the window and into the unknown. Escape, leave, away from his claws and cold lingering skin, away from the life you once knew. Through this window, you will be reborn. I found walls to bury myself in because that is all the comfort I have known. Everyone became too much for me. I had to go further into solitude, completely away from everyone. Then maybe I could find what I had to find, namely myself, a name for myself.
C.S.
This is where she was born, the artist in me. She had always been there, but this is where she took root.
You were left with nothing. I'm so sorry, Lotta. So sorry.
Not nothing. Do not pity me. I have this. Here I began life and theater.
Notice how Charlotta said life and theater. Not or. She had not said life or theater. She had made her choice. Here in this room, with nothing but art to her name, she had chosen life and theater.
He almost won, my grandfather. But I found the one thing that he could never have. The one thing that would never touch any corner of his shameful, pathetic life. Joy. Art was joy to me. It was pain and suffering and isolation, but it was also joy. It is what saved me. If I couldn't have found joy in my life and work, I would have taken my own life. I couldn't live as a Jew in this world. The Nazis made sure of that. I could not live on through the legacy of my unborn child. They killed her too. She was 5 months.
I can't imagine.
Don't.
I'm...
Say it again. The Nazis killed me, but my death didn't start there. My grandfather, he killed me many times over. He is the Hades of this story, the Grim Reaper, the black spot on my child-sized hands. Some look back on my life and see a Holocaust story. They see one Jew out of millions, a race like the others. My story only told because of the life, the art that they have salvaged. But I would like to salvage the everyday, my everyday, the life, the breath that I cast into these paintings. Like Dorian Gray, I stored myself. I preserved a youthful face, words that sliced like knives, pregnant pauses, empty windowsills, walls, thick enough to keep me in and keep them out. Cattle cars. Where your shoulders touch shoulders of strangers who share your last breath. Nightmares. Oh, nightmares. Daymares. It is an escape, but also a homing signal. I wanted others to see. I wanted them to bear witness, to look into the eyes of my grandfather and feel their stomachs writhe with the nausea that I felt every time his skin touched my own. But I killed him. I avoided my destiny and painted my life. I lived in these paintings. I crawled out that window. I did not fall. I lived in these paintings.
I stored my heart in the yellows of Alfred Wolfson, his beautiful, handsome, charming face. Oh, I painted him over and over. My heart and soul learning how to capture the smile in his eyes just right. I died when he turned me away, learning that my love was one of many. He killed me. But I lived. Lived with a broken heart. I stored Paula's voice in the pinks. The color of her always rosy cheeks. Closing my eyes, I let my hand carry my paintbrush as I heard her voice over and over, and she gave me butterflies like it was the first time I saw her. She also killed me. This beautiful woman who showed me the light of music killed me. She killed me every time she reminded me just how much she did not believe in me. My mother was green. It's what she deserves. Maybe it was the jealousy that I felt for her escape, or the sickness I so surely saw consume her, but she is green. Green for grass, green for sunflowers, green for things that grow and germinate and uproot the soil holding them down. Green for apples that make the best apple cake. The Nazis were red, but I took that from them. I saw red out my window too often to make it feel like anything other than my own. Blue was my grandfather. But blue was also myself. Myself, because in my life I will be victorious and I will find the joy. I will paint and paint and paint and paint until I have realized my joy in creation, my joy in reclamation, and my joy in my life. This is my life. I lived and died in this art. And when I could paint no more, I packed it up. I packed this all up and I gave it away. Oddly, I wrote, giving her my art, "Take care of this. It's my whole life."
Charlotte Salomon spoke her last documented words to the SS officer checking her into Auschwitz. It was the day after Yom Kippur on October 10th, 1943. When asked to state her name and profession for the records, she spoke.
Charlotte Salomon, draftswoman. Charlotte Salomon's everyday melts into the event when we know all too well what her cattle car arrival at Auschwitz meant. She was merely 26 years old and expecting. I think it's critical to recognize Charlotte who, when brutally ejected from her comfort zone by reality, channeled her trauma into being a political radical.
Through her use of pseudonym and stock characters with comical names, she proved art can be distinguished even when removed from the artist.
She provided music for our ears, paintings for our eyes, and words for our minds. A graphic novel libretto, where she simultaneously finds and proves that one can use art to understand. She even compares the act of indulging in artistic creation to passionate, sweaty lovemaking, the kind where you lose and find yourself in surrender.
She showed unbelievable perseverance. The war raged on, and she sat there by the sea.
And looked deep into the heart of humanity. Her work, which was discovered by Audley Moore,
whom it was left for,
was recovered after the war in 1947. Audley showed the work to Charlotte's parents, who survived the war in Amsterdam, and traveled to France to see if they could understand what happened to Charlotte.
Only years later, in 1961, did Charlotte Salomon's parents allow the work to be exhibited to the public.
And only the parts that did not bring shame to the living family, excluding
Suicide, lies, and sex.
Alfred Wolfson, shown in 400 images as Charlotte Salomon's love interest, passes away days after seeing her work on exhibit.
In 1971, Albert and Paula donated the entire trove to the Jewish Historical Museum of Amsterdam. Soon, after she was known all over the world, her works exhibited in numerous museums and galleries in the United States, England, Canada, continental Europe, and Israel.
And when both Albert and Paula had passed, much like when Charlotte's grandmother had left her, the truth was revealed. A stunning 19-page confession was brought to the public eye, Charlotte's words detailing the story of her grandfather's death. A fatal poisoning, kept secret for decades, was out. Charlotte had escaped him. This story, released by a Parisian publisher in 2015, though never proven, was in its becoming theater reflecting life.
Well, in this case, death.
So now, once you've seen our show, we ask you again. When you look at art, will you
look at the colors and shapes and what the picture is meant to be? Or will you also consider its meaning?
Its meaning to you. The same way that we ask you to look at art to understand others, use it to understand yourself.
Use it to arouse
Empathy.
Understanding.
Pause. Words had to be put into a script by a keyboard under a pair of hands that were desperate to tell a story. Whether they meant to tell that story or not, it has been told either way.
When we sat down to write this show, we planned to tell Charlotte Salomon's story.
But through the process of art making, we have inevitably told pieces of our story.
Charlotte's voice was our voice.
We illuminated aspects of her that resonated within our hearts, minds, and experiences.
Art is a performance.
A performance of life.
Art cannot be made without the emotions and experiences and tears and joys of human beings.
It cannot be made without nightmares and sunshine and memories from childhood.
Every artist has a story that they tell themselves and their audience.
So we ask you, is there a difference between
life
and theater?
Or
is it impossible to say? I was introduced to Charlotte Salomon via PowerPoint while studying abroad in Tel Aviv. Ordinarily focused more on plans for the beach than class, I was nevertheless so moved by her images and story that I couldn't stop thinking about them when I was sent home due to COVID-19 and gifted myself a copy of Life or Theater to spice up my quarantine. Ultimately, when notified that my senior directing project would have to pivot as a result of the pandemic, I started to think about how to make Charlotte Salomon part of my replacement project. After sharing what I knew of her story and images with the theater department at Lehigh, I was told that if I could get a team together, I could pursue my passion for her storytelling in a project. Several months later, I can merely say that I could never have anticipated the joy and success this team of independent collaborators has enjoyed while working on this full-blown production, buoyed by our shared excitement and sparked by CS's images, bound in trust of one another. I remain infatuated with Charlotte. Although her paintings are beautiful and her witty dialogue makes me laugh, I don't think it's her skill as an artist or the fact that she is a victim of the Holocaust that draws me. I think it's how she valued that maturing is a process, demonstrated to herself and to me through her intimacy and ownership of her traumas and her role in them, whether gullible, steadfast, strong-willed, or ignorant, as she evolved and captured in her work. She shows me that I can change, even when the world feels against me, because I have myself to rely on for strength. Further, she includes herself as an audience to her project, allowing herself to witness her art in its creation, learning from it in the same way I have learned at Lehigh. She was there for herself, tough on her world, and constantly challenging her status quo. During rehearsals, I found myself constantly judging my acting and paralyzed by my own judgment, not able to recognize CS's model of disassociating herself for the sake of the art. With Dan's loving guidance, I considered the idea of the self-portrait, where an artist must stop judging the face in the scene in order to find its beauty. When I stopped criticizing my acting and started to focus on the project as a whole, the victories of coming up with an idea, researching, encouraging a brilliant team who then dove into writing, directing, acting, designing, building, filming, editing, producing, marketing, and living with CS's example, I liberated myself to be a piece of this truly great equation. As an actress and a writer, I am merely a vessel for this story, to serve the growth of the community who witnesses this story, a puppeteer and a puppet. The point is the message, not the performance. This exercise thus becomes academic, with Charlotte Salomon as the teacher. Importantly, she wasn't always strong and owns that. She had struggles and matured. She demonstrates that people are allowed to evolve. This is a lesson I need as a woman about the age she was when she painted her work. She shows that there is hope for me to grow up and be wrong until I'm right. It devastates me that her breakthrough happened on the eve of her murder. Unlike her peer and neighbor Anne Frank, who diaried for herself, Charlotte Salomon wrote for an audience that she anticipated. I'm her audience. And now, so are you.
When the chorus has spoken, and we rise with the dawn, heaven gave us no warning, no maps to be drawn. We can fly where the bluebirds sing, and the mountains can hide. Cut the land like a river, there's a longing inside. So come and dive in the water, let the story be told of how we walk to the ends of all, how we conquered the road. No time to look back now, to the gathering storms. Winter's ghost is upon us, but wild hearts are strong. So come and dive in the water, let the stars